Hello, welcome to another episode of Boring Eastern Roman History. I would like to go ahead and talk about another Eastern Roman general that I found fascinating. His name is Tatikios. Not much is known about him from his early time. They roughly have 1048 estimated that his birth, and sometime he died around 1110 or longer. They're not really sure on either. He has various spellings of his name throughout history. We do know that he became one of Alexios I's most trusted generals and member of his personal entourage. What we do know of his upbringing, his father was termed a Saracen by Anakomene, just basically meaning a Turk. His father was captured by Alexios' father, John Komnenos, during a raid, and it seems like he brought along this family while his Tatikios' father served as a slave in their household. So it's listed that Tatikios and Alexios grew up together and they were the same age. I'm going to butcher this word, the Greek word. It's okogenes, in other words, being from the same house. Then there's nothing else really known about him until his first time in Roman service around in 1078. He's accompanied with Alexios in a battle against the rebel Nicephorus Basilakes. Now, during the 1070s, we have all these different types of rebels. After the death of Romanos Diogenes, everybody's just trying to grasp for the throne. It's complete chaos. And basically, Alexios brings Tatikios with him. Tatikios is used as a scout with a contingent of Turks under him. And he really was instrumental in this battle because he did find that Basilakes did actually have an ambush set up, which might have changed the course of the battle in the favor for Basilakes. But he was able to prevent this ambush. Basilakes was defeated and eventually blinded. Nothing's known till about 1081, until when Alexios becomes emperor, and he appoints Tatikios Megas Primokaros of the imperial household. Later that year, he commands Turks living around Atriata at the Battle of Dyrrhachium against Robert Guiscard. In the Battle of Dyrrhachium in 1081, Tatikios commanded about 2,000 Turks that were basically used to dispatch and try to come upon Guiscard's camp, but they were defeated by a contingent of Norman troops. Other than that, we see Tatikios being now sent to the Balkans. So nothing's really known from 1081 to about 1086. There's a big gap. There's a lot of gaps with his history. But he is sent to the Balkans because in 1086, in the Battle of Belatovia, we see an Eastern Roman army get annihilated by the Pechenegs. And he was sent there to assess the situation. He had orders to raise an army in Adrianople, and his second in command was a Frank named Konstantinos Humberpaulus, with a contingent of Franks. He immediately comes across a small raiding party of Pechenegs, which he easily defeats. Then Tatikios then sets up a camp near Philippolis on the bank of the Euros River near Salinas. And after barely setting up camp, here comes another Pecheneg force, which approaches with some spoils and prisoners. So Tatikios pursues this band near the Red Bank, and he divides his army in two, which is successful in destroying most of these Pechenegs, taking some prisoners in the process. So Tatikios sends out scouts after returning back to the camp at Philippolis, and he makes a plan of attack of the Pechenegs at Belatovia. Most likely the same army that defeated and killed Pacrianos and Branas in 1086. So they have Tatikios lines up for battle, taking the center. Most likely Humberpaulus either had the left or the right wing. We're not sure, so we don't know who the other commander is. For the next 2 days, they line up. Neither one attacks, and this results in a stalemate. So the Pechenegs then are written as retreating back via the Sidera Pass, but Tatikios is unable to pursue him and kept a garrison there in the area and heads back to Constantinople to explain the situation to Alexios. I'm really not convinced about the stalemate because I don't see the Pechenegs being very easily intimidated. They always were eager for battle, and they've over the course of time they've always had more victories over the Romans than losses. So to see this had to be a truce. So I believe Tatikios actually bought some time to go ahead and try to go back to Constantinople, raise a large army. So somehow he must have paid him off. Did get a small truce going on, so neither one would attack. And knowing the situation was dire in the west, Alexios knows this isn't too important to lose. He's got enough shit on his plate with the Turks in the east and decides, hey, I got to go down here personally and handle it. So let's just go back and take a look at the track record with the Pechenegs head on the Eastern Romans since they were pushed out by the Kievan Rus under Yaroslav I the Wise. So these people cross en masse over the Danube like an entire nation, and the Eastern Romans were unable to stop them in the 1040s. So in 1049, we have Magistros Constantine Aronides was defeated at Dempolis, along with Cataclon Kikomenos. Then in 1050, we have Samuel Bortzes was defeated and resulted in the deaths of Magistros Michael Dokianos and Constantine Aronides. Then in 1053, we have Michael Akalothos and Basil Syncellos were defeated, which resulted in Basil being killed. In 1064, we have Basil Apokapes and Nicephorus Botaniates were defeated. 1066, the Strategos Romanos Diogenes, which became the future emperor, stationed at Serdica, had success against them. And 1070, we had John Brianios, the brother to the usurper Nicephorus Brianios the Elder, had some success. 1078, we have Constantine Cataclon, which was defeated. 1086, we have Pacorianos and Branos. Both were defeated, with resulting in both them being killed. And then we did have some success on the Eastern Romans in spring 87. Marianos, Maro Catalan, and Bempetiziotis, however the hell you say his name, had success against them when the exiled King Solomon of Hungary crossed over the Danube with a Pecheneg chief named Tezelgu, and Marianus was successful in ambushing this army and killing the Pecheneg chief. This leads us back to Alexios, along with Tatikios, decides to go down there in 1087, and they're going to pitch battle against the Pechenegs in the Battle of Drista. Now, I believe Alexios probably was a little overconfident, having this large, massive army. He brought his Vranigan guard with him. He sets up camp by the river Vicina, and then for multiple reasons, Alexios is heavily defeated. We do know Nicephorus Melicinos commanded the left wing. We know the right wing was under Castamonides and Tatikios. And even with this large force, they're beaten. So this results in him to try to change his tactics and do more of a hit and run. So from next 4 years, from 87 to 91, it's a long 4 years. Here we're doing these small hit and runs, no more pitch battles. Until finally, in the Battle of Livonian in 1091, the Cumans and the Pechenegs were at kind of ends with each other, a lot of beef. So Alexios, being this master manipulator, decides to pit the Cumans against the Pechenegs and pays them heavily in gold, whatever promises he did. And the Cumans and the Alexios' army actually catch the Pechenegs off guard. And I mean, what results is in a complete massacre of them. They had their children with them, women, elders, everything. And I mean, it was such a bad slaughter that they were never, ever a threat to the Eastern Romans ever again. And who was captured was thrown in imperial service, because you will see them later in 1097 harassing the Crusaders when they were coming across mainland Europe into Constantinople. Then going back, we have not a lot known from Tatikios, except one other small part I'm going to mention in 1095. Tatikios was used against the Cumans at Therma in Bulgaria, and he did a lot of hit and run tactics with them, which was successful. So going back to 1092, Tatikios was dispatched with an army against an Abu Qasim at Nicaea. While successfully repelling Qasim's attacks, a large army was approaching to take Nicaea from Qasim. And this was sent by a Sultan Bariak with about 50,000 men. So Tatikios gets word of this. He's like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. And so Qasim, seeing this, being an opportunist, decides, hey, I'm gonna attack him. So he waits to about an area called Praenotis and tries to attack Tatikios, which was unsuccessful because Tatikios had a Norman contingent with long spears and lances, and successfully defeats Qasim, which you got to look at the Normans just historically too, when they were used in imperial service and then when they even were independent. They were just successful against the Eastern Romans as well as the Turks. They were really a check and balance against the Turks. I mean, as you see later on too with the Crusaders, they just really helped recapture a lot of this lost land in Anatolia. So this setback did not stop Qasim, who decides, okay, being ambitious, I'm going to build a fleet of ships at Chios on the Bithynian coast in 1093. So Alexius gets word and he sends Botomides by sea, who catches the ships in harbor and burns them. And then a second army under Tatikios on land was successful in a pitched battle, beating Qasim. So then in 1094, we have Tatikios prevented the son of Romanos Diogenes, whose name was Nicephorus, so from assassinating Alexios. So Alexios, after the death of the emperor Romanos Diogenes, he took the sons under his wing. And the son Nicephorus really had these grand ideas of becoming, the emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire. And when they were like on a bathhouse retreat, Tatikios seizes Nicephorus armed with a dagger, stops this assassination, and there's an investigation resulting in the blinding of Nicephorus. So he ends up being blind like his father did. And I guess this family just, even with Nicephorus' grandfather, Romanos' father, was also trying to usurp the throne himself too. So it's just a history of them being usurpers and being blinded. Tatikios was selected as a main delegate to assist the First Crusaders. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about the First Crusade. I'm just going to highlight some points with Tatikios. So he was selected, first being trusted with ensuring that the Crusaders would keep their end of the bargain and return any forts and cities back to the empire. Him being a Turk himself could be used as an interpreter as well as an advisor. And he was familiar with battle tactics with the Turks and the topography of the land and interior of Asia Minor. So he was the best man and most, like I said again, trusted person that Alexios could entrust with keeping the word of the Crusaders. So he leads the Crusaders to Nicaea, and here at Fort Hagos Georgios by Lake Nicaea, he gathers a large supply of arrows, and he's got about 2,000 men with him. So they're basically used to shoot arrows at the Tower of Ganados while the Crusaders are trying to lay siege to this part of the fortress. Tatikios, along with Botomides, was instrumental in getting the Turk garrison eventually surrender and open up a gate to them against the knowledge of the Crusaders. So what was really in their favor is Kilik Arslan's wife tried to escape via ship out of Nicaea and was taken by Botomides. And she was used as a bargaining chip too. So they let him know, hey, which we'll see later on in Antioch, the Crusaders, if they would have took Nicaea, they would have just slaughtered everybody, Christians alike, which they did in Antioch. They would have raped and pillaged. It's good old fun. So October 20th, 1097 to 20 June 1098, they laid siege to Antioch. So Tatikios takes the Crusaders there, and it's a long, long siege. And it's funny that even Raymond of Aguilera writes that Tatikios advised the Crusaders to disperse and capture the surrounding countryside before attacking Antioch, which would help avoid famine and this advice was ignored because they took Nicaea so easily. They probably thought Antioch would fall too, so they didn't take the words of this advisor that's with them. And the writing of the Gesta Francorum records Tatikios frequently warned the Crusaders about the ferocity of the Turks, to no avail. In February 1098, Tatikios leaves the siege. Now, this is per Anna Komnene, who records that Tatikios was informed by Bohemond that the other Crusaders mistrusted him and his life was going to be threatened. So, Bohemond, on the other hand, spread a rumor that Tatikios was a coward and a traitor, and fled the army, never to return despite his promises to bring back reinforcements and provisions from Constantinople. So Tatikios leaves and he arrives at Port Simeon and then goes directly to Cyprus. So this account, preserved in contemporary Crusader chronicles, referred to him as a great enemy and a liar. This accusation of betrayal against it seems unfair. For yes, he did leave, but when he left about 2 weeks later on March 4, 1098, a fleet bearing from Cyprus with food supplies and siege material, which was really needed for these Crusaders, arrives at Port Simeon. So it does show that he wasn't a liar, for he did see that there was badly, even though his life was at stake and all that. He still is honorable by sending the ship of provisions and siege material, which was needed. So historian Peter Frankopian suggested that Alexius was now confident enough to establish links between him and the Crusaders to retain his liaison officer was needed for other duties in Constantinople. So basically, Tatikios is not coming back. In 1098 to 1103, it is written that Tatikios does get the deputy admiral position. I guess it was called Paraphanes Tate Kefal, I'm saying that right, of the Eastern Roman Navy. He did earn this title after he defeated a Pisan fleet off the shores of Rhodes that was on their way to assist Bohemond, who is now the new prince of Antioch. Crusader chronicles also state that Tatikios had a mutilated nose. According to Gubert of Nogent, he said that he had a nose made of gold that he wore. Now, we know that when somebody had a mutilated nose, it usually was a sign of like something criminal they did, and so this is written to show that, try to like put Tatikios in a bad light about his character. His nose probably was somewhat mutilated, probably from battle, but there was never any documentation of him having it cut off as a punishment. So Anna writes about Tatikios as being a clever orator, and we do know he served in the Senate and was well-spoken. He was written as a powerful man of action and a valiant fighter, and kept his head under combat conditions, but his family was not freeborn. So just completely opposite of the Norman chroniclers about his characteristics. Tatikios did have powerful family members of a noble family, because as we see in the 12th century, including there was another general prominent in the Battle of Sirmium under Manuel I. And then we did see about another Constantine Tatikios who was deprived of his sight following a failed plot against Emperor Isaac Angelos, however you say his name. And it also states that Alexios and him, this is a good story, were playing polo in the early 1100s sometime. And Tatikios fell from his horse and landed on Alexios' knee, causing him gout for the rest of his life. And she also goes on to mention that he was a heavy man. So that was kind of cool to see some description of his appearance, being this large, heavy man. So the one thing I have is kind of interesting. We don't see him really climbing the military ranks, which others did in Alexios' personal circle, or noble aristocratic family members marrying into the family. He really wasn't highly elevated in the military ranks. I mean, we do have the one deputy admiral rank, of the other one of him being in the imperial household, and then the last rank of him being a Prodros. But not like a Sebastos, nothing high up there, or Megasebastos, or Domesticus of the East, or anything like that, or the West. So it's kind of interesting to see that he really was kind of like almost like a mundane military role. if you want to say. I don't know if that really does any justice, but he really didn't elevate. So if you guys have any other things that I missed or want to add on, please feel free to, put in the comments. I'm open to any kind of criticism. Again, I apologize. I'm not Greek. I'm terrible at, as you can see, trying to say some of these names and places. But yeah, thank you.